Welcome. Good afternoon. Thank you so much for being here. It is such an honor to be a part of this process through both Cleveland State and CMSD. This is my seventh year of presenting in action research, and I have to tell you, I grow and grow each time I'm given this opportunity to participate in such a wonderful partnership and collaboration between the university and the district. So, um, my project is, first of all, our project. I worked with Dr. Eddie Lamb for the last several years, and each year we've advanced our research to a different degree. We've presented at a couple of uh, seminars, and it's just been a wonderful collaboration. I am the music teacher at Campus International. I'm also the mother of four children that have been through Campus International, and I truly value what an IB school is, an international baccalaureate school. So if I could start my research with just a little bit of about what an IB school is, I think it would be helpful in understanding what my research is about. So I'm going to share my screen. There's no telling what will pop up, so I'll try to move this quickly. Here we go. This is what Campus International really is about. It is a 2-minute video. Good.
Campus International School is right now an elementary school located in the heart of Cleveland that offers an excellent opportunity for an amazing education. What I'm most proud of is when I walk into a classroom and a child jumps up to tell me what they're learning, and they're so excited and they're so engaged in the learning process.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to inquire. Our focus is clear. Watch us grow every year. Who we are. We are human, IMB. We are communities.
Looking at Campus International, the message that parents need to know is that this is a special place.
The kids here are learning in a safe, comfortable environment, and they're learning things that most people would be amazed at.
There's a lot of engagement in this school. You can walk past any classroom at any given time, and you'll see the students really engaged in learning.
When expectations of all of the partners in education, the teachers, the parents, the kids, when expectations are really high, people meet that, Everybody rises. Sometimes people think, well, this is just a special school. It is a special school, but it draws from Cleveland kids. And the difference is the culture and the expectations and what that causes to happen.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to inquire. Our focus is clear. Watch us grow every year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to inquire. Our focus is clear. Watch us grow every year. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to inquire. Our focus is clear. Watch us grow every year.
So the song that we were just listening to, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 units to inquire, is kind of exactly what our research was about. It was about the effects and the results that we could get by teaching the learner profile and the units of inquiry that the International Baccalaureate program is based on to the students through song. And we all know how strong music is, not only in our lives, but also in our children, and how we can memorize lyrics to a song just like that. But can you memorize them and apply them? And so I'm going to share with you our research. This is with Dr. Eddie Lamb and myself. Let me flip out of that. Sorry about that. Here we go. So the power of music. How powerful is music? What can we do with music in, here we go. There's present. Okay. So the power of music. This is our research. I have probably 4 minutes left, so I'm going to fly right on through this. Moving on through our introduction. In our study, we really concentrated on the IB primary years. International Baccalaureate has 3 different sections: the primary years, which is K through 5, sometimes K through 4, the middle years, which is 5 through 8, and then the 5 through 10, I'm sorry, and the diploma program, which is 11 and 12. We studied, our focus was on the primary years because I am a primary year teacher. Music involvement has always been connected to student achievement. We all know that if we listen to music, fireworks go off in our brain, all of our little neurons, our right side, our left side, lots of things happen when we listen to music. And our brain just really, the studies just show, it concludes that music participation results in higher acceptance rates. Music stimulates cognitive learning. Music training can extend the effect into language. We know our alphabet that way. Our cognitive skills, our fine motor skills, the ability to use small muscles accurately to write, to even in the 3rd grade to play a recorder. Campus International School has created an environment and culture that considers music education an integral component of our IB curriculum. And we truly believe that through the arts, so much happens. How can we tie that into the International Baccalaureate curriculum? We do that through song. And I'm going to just right ahead tell you that being in a pandemic, it was a little challenging. So what we had to do was really shorten our study and use 1 grade. We used a 2nd grade class. And so I gave them a pre-assessment of the learner profile. The learner profile are 10 words that we try to instill in the children: to be reflective, to be principled, to be an inquirer, to be a thinker, to be knowledgeable. They go running through the hall and you say, oh, can you show me how that would look differently? Are you being a thinker using your feet that way? Let's try to reflect and use a different way instead of stop running in the hall. So as they grow and develop, they have these tools in their pockets. So the research was also done with a Shaker Heights kindergarten class, but this was done virtually. You can't quite see it, but I'm up there singing on their virtual board. I assessed their knowledge of the IB language, the learner profile, and it was tricky. It's not very accurate, but I do feel like that collaboration needs to be outside of just our district. I created a song about the learner profile. I taught them the song. It was our pledge. And before the start of the research, each student was given a real simple pre-assessment: circle the learner profile. Were they able to do it? Some kids did because they have siblings. They're also in the 2nd grade. I'm just going to shoot on to the results because I know I have about 45 seconds left. The results were that females did a little bit better. This is Mr. Lamb's stuff. This is the point where he would jump in and really give me a great detailed explanation of this. This indicated that students made a significant improvement in recognizing the correct learner profile in the post-test. Female students did a better job than the male students. However, the males had a super great increase there. These are the words that they were able to identify in the pre-test. The ladies were able to identify almost 7 to all the way up to 8.4. The gentlemen were only at 4.7, but in the post-test, from singing the songs and beating it on the drums and dancing with it and moving around the room and tapping with it, they were able to recognize 7, a little over 7 of the learner profile words. There are 10, just for the record. The results indicated that there was a significant improvement in recognizing the correct learner profile. Male students made the significant improvement in the post-test when compared to the female students. I will certainly make this PowerPoint available to you. The conclusion of the base group is, the conclusions are a little askewed because of the virtual situation. However, it truly demonstrates that songs created are very effective in assisting students with better understanding, capturing, and retaining the IB vocabulary. I will make a true confession that part of the reason I wrote these lyrics were for us educators that had to remember your ATLs and your units of inquiry and where we are in place and time and all these words, and there's so many of them. And it started out kind of a little game with myself, and I thought the kids need this. So it's powerful. Music is powerful. Education is. We are so lucky to have this opportunity. And that's what I've got. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Janice. A couple of, round of applause. Round of applause.
And I'll take that for Eddie.
And round for Eddie. Round for Eddie. A couple of thoughts. I mean, that's really interesting because as you were talking, I was thinking about how when you're trying to alphabetize something, you find yourself going LMNOP, in your head. And, clearly having some sort of either text or song really helps with remembering something like that. So can you just talk a little bit about what it was like before in terms of the process of kids learning these 10 things? Like, how important is it for you to learn the 10 things? How long does that take? So we know a little bit about the sort of the background to this.
I cannot wait until 6:00 when I go ask my older 3 children, name the 10 learner profile words. I wonder if they would be able to do it. So I'll get back to you on that. It is a process. We always start with the easiest word, which is caring. And how can we teach our students to be caring? I think it is a process, K through 8. There are second graders on this post test that were able to name them right away. Maybe they had older siblings. Maybe they had a lot of parent interaction. Maybe they remember the songs a little differently. I think it's a very individualized process. 10 words are a lot. I think I only named 7, to be honest with you. I missed communicator. That was one that I missed. It is a process. I think as long as they know the song and you ask them to name the 10 learner profile, they can sing that song and run through it and name all 10 of them.
So it's like sort of part of creating a shared cultural frame of reference for the school to learn this.
Not
we have a shared language and
not necessarily just the school, but any international baccalaureate school. If you went to India and stepped into an IB school, you would be hearing these 10 learner profile. And what it's doing is it's giving our children the tools to be communicators in an open-minded and empathetic language, to be able to see the big picture instead of because when you ask a second grader to be open-minded, they know, oh, that means I have to sit back and listen. Or if I ask a kindergartner, we're working on a song right now about balanced, and balanced is one of our learner profile. And if you ask a kindergartner right now what balanced is, they will put 2 hands out and say just enough candy and just enough broccoli, like not too much broccoli and not too much candy. Like they have a understanding of balanced. I can't say, there's no scope and secrets, but by the 3rd grade, they have to know them all.
Okay, so that was my follow-up question, but it sounds like you're already starting on this, is using music to help them, just as children's books do the same thing, using music and songs to help them learn, what do we mean by reflective? What do we mean by principled? What do we mean by knowledgeable? So you're already working on that? You have plans for, so that's sort of the music content to flesh out once you have the framework?
Right. So reflective is a great one. At first, maybe our first year, I've been there since the beginning of the school, to reflect is one of our learner profile. It used to be, instead of, the old time out, take your time out, go reflect on that. Take a minute and reflect on your actions. And instead, reflection has turned into reflect with no mirror. So all of a sudden the kids understand. That's a lyric in one of the songs I wrote. We reflect with no mirror. We reflect about the positive things that happened today, and we reflect on the things that we could have done differently. We hold our hands up and we turn our hands around and we reflect. We're looking at ourselves and we reflect with no mirror. And a kindergartner can say, I wish I hadn't spilled my milk. I'm going to do better tomorrow. Or another kindergartner said, I got all the way up to 4 on my chart today. That was awesome. So reflection is a great example of the process.
Fabulous. Thank you.
Yeah.
I think Ann's going to segue us. So yeah, no, that's really interesting stuff.
Thank you so much, Janice. That is wonderful. And I hope we can come back. So we'll be iterative here. So next we have intrinsic motivation in a 4th grade classroom, and the action researcher is Stephanie Graber.
That's me. Okay, so first of all, I want to do a huge shout out to Dr. Hill. Thank you so much. This was a blast to do this project. So at the start of my project, Dr. Hill and I were talking, and I've been teaching for 7 years, so motivating, building confidence has always been a strength. But with the online learning, it's difficult to motivate your kids when it's screen to screen. And building that classroom, the warmth and all of that was coming, but it was slow when you only have 2 hours with your kids. It was difficult. So Dr. Hill and I were talking, and she said, this motivation, you're caring about your kids, is something we should do research on. I said, sounds great. So we were talking about intrinsic motivation and what kind of knowledge and background experiences do we have to know about these elementary students and what they bring to the classroom, and then what resources for teaching and learning do I have to bring to make it a positive environment where they are motivated to do the learning. So that was what we were working on. And we also worked on how student backgrounds and their experiences can be used to foster the opportunity for intrinsic learning among the youth in the urban public elementary school, virtual, hybrid, and the in-person. So I'm 4th grade, Maple Heights. This is my 2nd year in the district. I've taught at a private school and a charter school, so I've kind of gotten everything. So we started off first by gathering information. So we use this thing, it's called a Go Guardian report. And usually the Go Guardian report is when kids are online, and it's usually used to flag kids that look up things that are kind of like red flags. Like we had a student that was looking up things about suicide, and we get an email from our email saying, this student is looking up this on their laptop. So instead of using it for looking for negative things, I wanted to see the positive things. And Dr. Hill brought this to my attention because one of my students I noticed wasn't logging on. So I had asked the tech department to email me it was 7 a.m. till 4 p.m. what he was doing during the day instead of logging on to class. And we were looking at it, and Dr. Hill's like, do you realize that this kid is super smart with science? And I was like, oh, this is cool, because all his YouTube videos were about looking at the inside of a car. And that's where the idea came up of, we should use this information to drive my instruction and create these lifelong learners. I was like, this is awesome. So we started getting all these reports. We were looking through them. We also looked at their journals. They journal every day. And I made it, after I started doing this research, I used to have them write their own, but then I started letting them verbally tell me and share. And what I realized is their verbal communication was so much better than their writing. So what we started doing was doing the journals, but I also used the Flipgrid, where we put a journal prompt up and the kids would then go on the Flipgrid and verbally tell me things. Because unfortunately, in a 2-hour online class where you have 13 kids at once, I wasn't getting that personal connection that I was craving, and I know they were as well. So I used Oh, and then Dr. Reed was, Dr. Reed, I'm sorry, that's my principal. Dr. Hill was also doing interviews where she would pull kids into a breakout room and was just talking with them. And then she realized that my one student loves to talk. So they were really great kids. And I learned a lot from this whole research project. It actually really helped me as a teacher to start understanding the kids better. And it helped me realize the different modalities that I do teach and the different ways that I need to change my teaching to make it more about them. So we talked about who they are, what drives their focus, how can these factors be used to motivate them, engage them in learning. So what we did was, hold on. So I looked at the GoGuardian, the Flipgrid, the journaling, and then I started to just build different things. So one of the first things I started doing, and I had done this before, but it was not something I used consistently, was saying, I love you. And I feel like that really changed the atmosphere of my classroom, because now I have kids who are logging off saying, bye, Miss Faber, I love you too. And realizing that they were more of an emotional class and emotions did motivate them also helped me to change a lot of things that I did. And that's when I started doing the you tell me your journals. So by doing that, it was becoming more personal to them, which motivated them to do the work. And then I also let them start teaching lessons. So when about halfway through this project, the end of March, was when my students came back hybrid, which was also a game changer because they were then in person. So the motivation of being in the classroom was it was immense. It was crazy how much they wanted to come back. So as soon as they came back, I started implementing a lot of the things that Dr. Hill and I had talked about for different ways of motivation. And what we learned is first we have to do the extrinsic motivation to then finally get to the intrinsic. So what we started doing was this teach the teacher thing, where we were doing, so our math protocol is it's fluency, number of the day, DMR, vocab, and then you do your lesson. So what I changed in my lesson was that my kids were now coming to the board and they were doing the beginning part. And they were doing it with confidence, they were doing it with fluency and fluidity, and they were not only doing it themselves, but having other kids participating, which showed me that the things I was implementing was making a difference in their learning and them wanting to learn. So building that lifelong learner had started, and it was really, really awesome to see how some of my very low kids, I have 12 kids on IEPs in my classroom this year, so it's a lot. I have IEPs and 504s. So it was a lot. And to see these kids who have behavior issues, who are ED, IEP low, wanting to come up and present and do it themselves was amazing. So I started doing things that I knew they wanted. So they were telling me whether it was Post-it notes, whether they were emailing me, messaging me, doing a private message on Google Classroom. They were telling me all these amazing things that they wanted to do. So what I told them was I would let them do this. So we started doing chalk, we did yo-yos, we were doing Legos, they did marble run, all the things that we did as kids that they want to try, they did. And it was great to see how they were giggling and laughing and doing all this. Yes, it had a lot to be independently because of COVID, but they really, really enjoyed it. So, and then a lot of the positive reinforcements we put in, I would walk around with Post-it notes. And as the kids would work, I would write down like, I love how you answered this equation, and I would put it on their desk. I also realized that them being allowed to write on their desks, our desks are dry erase board desks, which is great. They were allowed to write on their desks, which was the coolest thing for them. So in conclusion, understanding and getting to know my kids and seeing what motivates them has been, I think, pretty successful in my classroom. And I've seen it in my attendance. I've seen it in their completion of their work. I see it in not only completion, but they're doing it correctly. And they want to answer my questions and they're engaged. And yeah, that's about it. Thank you.
Wow. Between Stephanie and Janice, I think I want to go back to elementary school. I'm like, right? University's boring compared to compared to all the fun they're having. We get to sing songs and marble runs. Seriously, I'm sitting around reading papers. Come on, we got to do something more fun.
Come in anytime.
All right. I mean, what's interesting is your motivation coming through. It's just like, it's kind of like a fire hose or something. So that's interesting that you're so enthused about what's happened. And there is this sort of reciprocal thing that happens in classrooms that's either a positive spiral or a negative spiral between the teacher and the kids. So it's like they've got you wound up, which is cool. Right? It seems like ownership is both relationships and ownership really came out as strands. So can you say something about your relationship with this class compared to your relationship with a class like 3 years ago?
So 5 years, I was at a private school in Brunswick. I was at St. Ambrose. So when I was at St. Ambrose, it was more of a family style there where like the parents were really involved, the kids were there. I would go to sporting events. And then here it's a little different because we have a little bit less parental involvement. I do constantly contact them. I text these parents. I've changed my style of communication to match the style of what these parents need. And that's what I've really, really realized in this setting is that you have to change your style to what these families need and what these kids need. Because yes, in the end, they all want an education. They all want to be that lifelong learner, but you have to figure out the little puzzle pieces that make this district unique and these kids unique. So this class especially is a very, very emotional class. So I formed a different attachment and different bond with them that I have with other grades. But I feel like that's every year. Every year you have such a different attachment to your kids. And they can tell when you really care. And I think that's the biggest difference is when you can see that your teacher cares about you and they want to know stuff. Like I was telling Dr. Hill, my one student told me, he goes, Miss Graber, 3 things that really bother me. Number 1, I hate it when my cereal gets soggy. And I was like, okay. So I jotted it down on a Post-it note, what bothers him. And then I'll bring it up in conversations when we're online. Like, London, you're here. What, were you bummed? Is that why you're tardy? Was your cereal soggy? You had to make more cereal, buddy? Like, what's going on? And he's like, Miss Graber, I was sleeping. And I was like, okay, thanks for being honest.
So you really invested a lot of time and effort in getting to know them and getting to know the families. Mm-hmm. The other piece is the ownership that you were giving the kids of their learning. And one of the things that comes up endlessly in classes at CSU and amongst teachers is, oh, I can't do that because of the formal curriculum. So can you talk a little bit more about how you did these things that clearly supported intrinsic motivation while still feeling, you're helping them learn what you're supposed to have them learn?
So it is really difficult, especially with, the whole teaching to the test that we don't want to do, but then realizing that we have a pacing guide that we have to follow, especially in Maple, we have that pacing guide. This is what you're teaching this day. This is what you're teaching this day. But to figure out little ways you can tweak it. I was fortunate enough where I'm self-contained. I teach all 4 subjects. I get my kids all day. I absolutely love it. So I'm fortunate enough where I can tweak my curriculum however I need for my kids. I'm also the one that did math slides for the whole 4th grade. I was the one that was in charge of all the PowerPoints this year. And I tried making it as fun as possible. And on the days where they were doing assessments, I would try doing, we did a lot of math workouts. Dr. Hill actually came to one of them. So what it is they would do 3 slides of multiplication, quick, 3 times 5, 4 times 2, 8 times 8. And then they would have to do a workout. So it was 10 jumping jacks, touching your toes. And then I tried getting fancy and doing dance moves. They didn't like it because I was doing cheesy, do the sprinkler. And they didn't like that as much. But I tried changing up my curriculum to make it fun and engaging. And like the one thing that I realized is they really like jokes. At the end of every one of my math slides, I have a joke. They asked for riddles. I switched it to riddles, knock jokes, whatever they wanted, I did.
You talked a lot about lifelong learners. So my question is, okay, what do you want to learn next about how to help kids become lifelong learners?
So my next step is learning about the different learning styles and figuring out how to put it more in my curriculum. Because to foster these kind of learners, it is once again difficult with the curriculum that we have. But for example, I'm doing summer school and I'm in charge of all of summer school. And the one thing that we're doing is we're doing area and perimeter. It was a week standard this year. But when I was at my old school, before we had to do testing, because Catholic schools don't have to do it, we did obstacle courses, and the kids would do a STEM project on 3D obstacle courses, and we get to do that this summer. Or we're also doing we're making themes. The other one is video games. So I'm in charge of they're making a whole plot, and they're doing a plot diagram of their video game. So who are the characters, what are the settings, and they have to come up with a whole story of a video game. So we're trying to take their interests and their likings and letting them do stuff like that so that we make them the lifelong learners and they realize that this is real life. We try doing those real life connections all the time to show them that, guys, we're not just learning multiplication just because we want to bore you to death.
We have 1 minute. Does somebody else want to ask a question? I've been talking a lot. or make a comment.
I just want to say, wow, that is a lot of change, like just to change your whole perspective on it and look at what happened. That's amazing. I loved hearing you tell about your classroom.
And it's really interesting because my kids love songs and they love to sing and they love to dance. We do TikToks all the time. We do a division song that they listen, they hear, and they will repeat it after me. So we do singing constantly in my room too, and I love it.
All right, I think we're probably down to 15 seconds. So what do you get when you cross a teacher with a vampire?
Ooh, I don't know what.
Well, you can use this next year.
I will.
A blood test.
That's a good one. My kids will like it.
All right, anybody else have any other? All right. Thank you. That was wonderful. I feel motivated. I'm gonna go do a marble run when we're done.
Stephanie, at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and I know you've been up for hours. You have amazing energy, so I feel it. Just great. Okay, our next project is collaborative action research. The grant is music as a facilitator in learning. Oh, I'm sorry.
That's Janice. She doesn't want to go again. As much fun as it was.
I'm so sorry. Jessica, here we go. Let me start again. Do mindfulness, stress reduction activities, reduce math anxiety, and increase math achievement. And we're eager to hear what you have to say.
Okay, let's see. So I'm a MUST intern. I was over at Normandy High School and I was in an Algebra 2 classroom. So during my research, we had 3 platforms. So we had 2 weeks of being completely online. Then we had about 4 weeks of hybrid. And then the last 6 weeks were everybody's in 5 days a week. And it was really hard because I had PowerPoints. I made everything to do stress reduction before a quiz, before a test. But I was actually, I got pulled out to do long-term subbing in the same building. So I had to go from teacher and led reduction activities to handouts. So it's student-led. So I made it adjustments into my research and made it more going from teacher base to student base, led instruction of stress reduction activities. So if I'm gonna, I want to share my screen for a minute or two.
You should be able to. Is it working?
So I made this PowerPoint. I wanted to make it fun and just so the kids would look at it and be like, okay, it's stress reduction. It's something to get them to relax and maybe get them to laugh before the test. And then during the test, I had this up the entire time. Remember to stay calm. You got this, just to get them. Because I remember in high school, I would always get stressed out between quizzes or tests, just the idea of it. So I wanted to have them something that maybe give them a laugh before a test. And then I did a survey for like teacher-led muscle relaxation prior to a test and like student-led. And then which do they prefer, the teacher-led or the student-led? And I'm still collecting the data and I'm trying to figure out how it all goes together. And that's where I'm at the moment.
Can you talk a little bit about what you think you might be seeing in terms of patterns of what's happened and what's changed going from teacher-led to student-led?
I did a few surveys and it seemed like they liked the teacher-led better. Like I remember but I could see that this teacher-led made the most difference because I could see that some of the students doing it with me and actually seeing them actually go through the activities. But student-led, I could see maybe one or two or like maybe 5 students actually doing it by themselves. But I got more students doing it with me than them doing it by themselves.
So what are all the questions you're asking? You're asking which one they prefer, but then you're also noticing how much they're really doing it, right?
Mm-hmm.
And this is harder at high school. Like I had a presentation in one of my classes last night on mindfulness activities, but this is in primary. So in early childhood. In high school, the psychology of this is a little tougher if I'm doing some of these things that, you're asking me to do. If I'm in first grade, I may not feel the same self-consciousness. Do you get some sense of the kids' self-consciousness about this? You're trying to make it fun. How are they reacting in terms of some of these activities? Are some of them too cool for this?
I have kids looking at me like I'm crazy and then they're like, okay, we'll do it. But
yeah, weird lady. Okay.
Yeah. But getting them to think about something other than the test, I feel is helping.
Yeah, absolutely. Is there mindfulness going on anywhere else in the school?
No, they're focusing more, like the school is more focused on literacy at the moment.
But this is not being threaded through, because I could be scared about literacy too. So or science. This is not threaded through the school. So you're like alone doing this. And it's not part of the culture in the same way like IB has all of these things that are threaded through and all the teachers are doing pretty similar things. So you're sort of alone doing this. How did they respond when you first brought it up? And how did you first bring it up? Because this isn't what we normally do in school. We normally just get anxious. We're not supposed to get unanxious. So how did you bring it up at first?
I just tried to bring it up as first asking the students, how do you feel going into a test or quiz, and just getting their perspective and being because most of them are we don't like it. It makes us nervous. We don't want to do it in the first place. It's just to get something over with. Just trying to bring them back to what causes good grades, what causes less anxiety, what can I do? Because I made posters in the classroom being making a math equation, being homework, study, preparation leads to good grades, and just having those up in the room and then getting them to do little surveys, asking them questions on what their perspective is, and just trying to bring in, this is what you can do. This might reduce some stress.
So how did you tell the story of this would reduce, like what's good about reducing the stress? Because I could tell, it was interesting, we had a discussion about in class, I'm listening to my students. Are we reducing stress so they get good grades? Are they reducing stress so that school's a happier place? Is it both? Like what kind of story either are you constructing or they constructing about why we're doing these things? Why do you do that? Why do I crinkle up? Why do I have to crinkle up my forehead for 10 seconds? Why do I crinkle up my forehead for 10 seconds? What's the goal? Is it like more grades or is it more my experience in school?
It's to decrease stress, to think
so it's
of something else, being like, I'm stressed about this, but I'm trying to release that tension.
Okay. You went through the cartoons were very funny. You went through the slides quickly. Are there breathing ones in there too? So I couldn't see what all the activities were.
Yeah, so it said one of them was
like one's your forehead, right? One's your leg. I was trying to.
Yeah, so it said scrunch up your forehead for 10 seconds, then release, and then it said take a deep breath, and we'll go to the next one.
Are there any of them that you think are more effective than the others? Do you have any sense of that? Or is it just doing a bunch of them?
Just doing a bunch of them.
And anybody else have any other thoughts? Because we certainly have a lot of stress going on, and boy, math is someplace where high school math, algebra, that's kind of seemed like kind of the heart of a lot of people's anxiety about high school. Other questions or comments?
So I have a question. So I tried tapping with my kids. I had a holistic nurse come in and she taught me a ritual because I have autistic kids. So we learned tapping and we learned different pressure points that we touch. And I've tried it for 2 years now, and it works with some, doesn't work for others. How long of a span have you been doing this with the kids for? Is it just the one experience of testing, or are you doing it like all year?
That's a good question.
I did it over the third quarter and the end of the second quarter.
So did the kids know the routine I know it's high school, but did the kids know the routine? Like, oh, this is coming first, this is coming second. Do they know that or not really?
Some of them started catching on.
Do you plan to continue it?
I'm not in the room anymore because my student teaching ended, but I kept handing. What?
Do you think they'll continue it, student led?
That was one of my ending questions, and I got, I think, like 15 kids that like, I'm going to keep going and keep doing it, but for the most part, I don't think so.
Now that's great, actually. If you got that many people who said that, we did an activity, we did a relaxation activity in class last night, and I think for a lot of people it was the highlight of their day. Because we closed our eyes and did some deep breathing, and it was the only time all day I slowed down and did something just really zen. It was the only time yesterday. So it seems like you're doing something that's really unique that could really be a very different experience for kids, especially if they start to internalize it and start to make it a practice of their own.
I'm really struck by the sophisticated blending of cognitive activities and movement and affect and art. And especially given the year that students and teachers and families have had, how absolutely instrumental this is. So I just really applaud the work. I think it's wonderful. And if we can learn from your research so that this can be more common, I'm sure that, we could locate data coming out of this that would also show academic progress as a result. And I love the fact that it's so centered on knowing your students. I guess I have a question. You know, Dr. Hill and I are involved with Rotation 1 at the undergrad level with the students just coming into the teacher profession career. And I wonder if you have advice for how to invite, you know, our undergraduates into some of your own orientation towards student-centeredness and affect and art. If you have any thoughts, that would be so helpful.
Yeah, you all three have done things that are kind of outside of what we're usually talking about, just like the morning literacy block, and we're going to get that in. So it is a challenge for us to figure out how to encourage teachers to think about the whole child and to think about relationships, autonomy, anxiety, emotions, music. A lot of that stuff is just gets shoved to the side. So yeah, if you have any tips on giving people, getting people to think about it, giving them faith that they can focus on these things, that would be helpful.
Yeah, and if I could rephrase that, was this something encouraged in your own professional training, or is this something that you have come to from your own, years and observing?
This doesn't quite answer that question, but one thing that can bring that music and learning, and Stephanie said that she was already doing it, is just to get a drum, a bongo drum, and put it in your classroom. And when you're doing math facts, beat it out on the math fact, beat it out on the bongos, and they'll beat it right back to you on their desk. Or give them a stick and have them. I do this a lot because now I'm traveling from classroom to classroom. If you're whatever fact or science or method or whatever you're working on, get all crazy and have them, this is for elementary kids, put their chair on their desk and take their pencil and tap on the chair. Anything to get, number one, it's kind of like a brain break. It gets them up, it gets them moving, but you're still sneaking in that learning, and they're enjoying it. And they're like, oh my gosh, I got to put my chair on the table today, but this is what I did. So drums are fantastic. They're easy. They're inexpensive. You can find them anywhere. Throw them in your room and watch what happens. So that didn't answer your question, though. Sorry. The question before that one.
I think we just need to bring drums into our college classrooms.
Yeah.
Any other final thoughts or questions before we go back to the main room?
I just want to quickly say that you two ladies have changed my teaching. I'm so excited to go to work tomorrow. Thank you. It's fantastic.
Yes, this was awesome. Thank you guys all so much. This was really a very unique experience.
Well, we need more music and motivation and stress reduction in classrooms. I mean, that's really a lot of nice flavor to add to what's going on for kids and youth. So that's wonderful.
There's a lot we really don't know about what happened this year. So please consider publishing your work, because we just don't know what really has gone on for young people, and you're closest to it. Besides the families themselves, you are the closest to it. So thank you so very much. Thank you, Dr. Wheatley, for being here and for those wonderful questions. Thank you, Dr. Hill, for your support and involvement in the action research. Appreciate it. Thank you to our speakers. Fantastic. Thank you ever so much. And Therese, thank you for giving us confidence that if things were to fall
That's
apart
right.
here.
Thank you, Therese.
Yeah, and thank you, Aaron, for moderating. And it was
Yeah, my pleasure.